Hi, welcome to lesson number 38. Today's lesson is entitled QbD, or Quality by Design. The objectives covered in this lesson include an historical approach to quality, a discussion around historically how we would release material, what is QbD or what is quality by design, and to highlight the difference between the current approach to product release versus the QbD approach. What are the benefits to the manufacturer for implementing QbD? We'll talk about the implications on personnel within an organization, as well as the QA department, key components of quality by design, as well as tools to implement QbD in your organization, and finally the QbD advantages that it brings. So the historical approach to quality. FDA's emphasis on quality by design began with the recognition that increased testing doesn't necessarily improve product quality. This has long been recognized by other industries, and in order for quality to increase, it must be built into the product. And to do this, it requires an in-depth understanding of how formulation and manufacturing processes influence your product quality. So QbD requires identification of all critical formulation attributes or critical process parameters, CPPs, we would have discussed previously, as well as determining the extent to which any variation on these CPPs can impact the quality of the finished product. So historically, no testing would have been required way back. That moved on to testing of the final product, which then progressed into testing of your raw materials or your key intermediates, as well as your final product. Then we moved on to extensive testing of all your product inputs, your raw materials, as well as your final product outputs, and control of critical process parameters. And finally, testing and control based on process validation and strict adherence to processes. So traditional approach focused on achieving compliance to product specification. Only minor variation studies to establish that the product is reproducible. So traditionally, we would test the final product and ensure that it meets specification. So we would have no control over the progression of quality, if you like, from the moment the first raw materials are mixed to the final end product being produced. So this new level of quality that I've spoken about, or quality by design, is moving away from this hit and miss approach, where quality is built into the product right from the first step, and it's not controlled by the final product testing. So we have a greater understanding and a greater control over the process steps right from the very start. So we've designed a more robust process. So the actual definition of QbD is as follows. It is a systematic approach to pharmaceutical development that begins with predefined objectives and emphasizes product and process understanding and process control based on sound scientific and quality risk management. So your predefined objectives are set forth right at the very beginning of your product development. So before you even go into your few months to start your product development, you set out your objectives, or you build a control space that you want your product to fall into. So again, another a table that summarizes the differences between the current approach versus the QbD approach. It's a nice summary. Quality assured by testing and inspection of your final product versus the QbD approach, where quality is built into the product and process by design, and it's based on a scientific understanding of your process. The current approach, data intensive submission. So you've got a lot of data being generated. The information is disjointed, whereas the QbD approach would be a knowledge rich submission, new application showing product knowledge and process understanding. Again, the current approach is based on specifications that are set based on historical data, based on previous batches, where the QbD approach is specifications based on product performance requirements and how you want your process to behave. The current approach would consider your process to be, from the moment it's developed or validated, it's considered frozen, discouraging changes. The QbD approach would be a flexible process within design space, allowing continuous improvement of your process. And finally, the current approach would be focused on reproducibility, often avoiding variations within your process. The QbD approach is very dissimilar in that it focuses on robustness and understanding and controlling the variations that are seen within a process. So science is no longer isolated. It is living across the life cycle of the process within a quality management system that focuses on QbD. So what are the benefits for the manufacturer if we implement a QbD process? So it reduces time to market, a space and flexibility for more innovation. reduced documentation and better communication between the regulatory authorities and industry, guaranteed quality for every unit produced, decreased cost of production by improved productivity, an obvious competitive advantage in the market, image improvement, creating value using existing data and resources, and better knowledge management of your process. The implications on personnel working in this type of space: employees need new skills to implement and work in a QbD environment. Scientific data analysis is required, a lot of stats, process control. It's very similar to Six Sigma training, which we will go into in the next few slides, where we talk about master black belts and black belt people with black belt training having a good knowledge of your processes. Also, green belt training increases collaboration between departments and functions, so it's considered to be a cross-function technique that's used. It allows increased contact with regulatory authorities, clearly defined accountability, roles and responsibility, which is important, I think, for personnel working in any organization. And QbD is very much an interdisciplinary project team, so it involves people from quality assurance, R&D, IT, manufacturing, QC, to work very closely together in a QbD environment to keep your process alive, if you like. Implications on QA. So in the validation world, validation to focus on management of critical to quality parameters. Your validation could be carried out in real-time mode using PAT, process analytical technology, which we've spoken previously, instead of using your conventional 3 consecutive batches idea, which is currently used for process validation. Your validation will give you much better process understanding and will reduce your validation effort, and also your software validation will be reduced also. Documentation, you will have better process understanding, which may allow changes in your specifications, and submissions would need to include design space and controlled space experiments and data to support that information. So, like we said before, it's an interdisciplinary technique. It works in the design space, incorporates a lot of different bodies from a lot of different areas. So it's closely knit, but it's very much a live process where your system is constantly changing. Some key components of QbD and some techniques or some acronyms we would have used before, one being critical quality attributes, or CQAs. These are physical, chemical, biological or microbiological properties or characteristics of final product that need to be controlled, either directly or indirectly, to ensure product quality. And CQAs, or critical quality attributes, include aspects of product performance, as well as determinants of product performance. Process parameters. Process parameters is any input operating parameter, for example, mixing speed, temperature, flow, pressure, and any process state variable, for example, the temperature or the pressure of a bulk holding tank, or of a process or a unit operation. So it's an actual parameter within your operation that's considered to be critical. Classification of process parameters falls under 3 distinct types. They can be unclassified process parameters, critical process parameters, and non-critical process parameters. And again, these are all defined in your design space before you go into, during process design, before you actually go into your production space. So essential elements in a QbD approach, and again, this is covered under the ICH guidance document Q8. So just to highlight some of the main headings within that guidance document, we talk about quality target product profiles. So we need to identify what is crucial or critical to the patient and link this to the drug product. So for example, is dose important? Dissolution rate important depending on the route of administration. Appearance obviously would be another one, as well as, say, content uniformity of each particular capsule or tablet. Determine the critical quality attributes, or the CQAs, is probably the next step or the next element that's crucial in QbD. And CQAs are generally associated with your drug substance, excipients, or your drug product, as well as your intermediates. Then your risk assessment. So you need to link your raw material attributes and your process parameters to your critical quality attributes. And some of the materials that we would that fall under this particular heading would be things like the starting materials, raw materials, reagents, solvents, intermediates, APIs, and also your packaging and labeling materials. So we look at the attributes. So can raw materials CQA, so a raw material may have a critical quality attributes that's important. So for example, the impurity profile of a raw material, the particle size of a raw material may be critical, as well as its moisture level or sterility might be crucial. So you link your material attributes to your CQAs in the design space. So then you move along to the next element, which is developing a design space. This particular option is optional. It's used for, say, scale-up approaches or scale-up correlations, where you want to translate your operating conditions within your fume hood into a process scale environment. It can or cannot be used to ensure QbD, but it normally, more often than not, is actually used as part of your design, QbD elements. Design and implement a control strategy. Controls can include parameters and attributes related to your drug substance, to your equipment operating conditions, your facility, your in-process controls, your finished product specifications, as well as the associated methods and how you monitor the control of the method performance. So they're all included as part of your control strategy. And finally, manage your product and your life cycle of your process through continual improvement. So constantly monitoring any deviations or trends, monitoring your monitoring your process using controls, see is there anything trending outside or about to trend above the upper or lower limit, and monitoring customer complaints and things like that. So tools to implement QbD include things like design of experiment that we've spoken about previously, structured, organized method for determining the relationship between factors affecting a process and the response of that process. A risk assessment, a systematic process of organizing information to support a risk decision to be made within a risk management process. It consists of the identification of hazards and the analysis and evaluation of risks associated with exposure to those hazards. And finally, PAT, process analytical technology, is a system for designing, analyzing and controlling manufacturing through timely measurements, which is normally measurements taken during the process or in real time, of critical quality and performance attributes of raw material and in-process materials, as well as process streams, with the goal of ensuring final product quality is achieved. The term analytical in PAT is viewed broadly to include chemical, physical, microbiological analysis conducted in an integrated manner. So your risk-based concept includes things like the key terminology like CQAs, critical quality attributes, QbD, your design space, critical process parameters, PAT, process analytical technology, a good control strategy, risk-based concepts, a risk-based approach, as well as DOE, design of experiment. And all of these key terms are found in the ICH guidelines Q8, 9, 10 and 11. So we are bound by regulations to follow as and when we can these particular guidance documents. So some QbD advantages include the following. Depending on the level of development achieved and an adapted quality system in place, opportunities exist to develop more flexible regulatory approaches, for example, to facilitate risk-based regulatory decisions around reviews and inspections. Manufacturing process improvements within the approved design space described in the dossier without further regulatory review, reduction of post-approval submissions, and real-time release testing, leading to a reduction of end product release testing. Higher level of assurance of product quality for patient, so improved product and process design and understanding. So quality risk management is key here. Monitoring, tracking and trending of product and your process allows for continual improvement where you can react to any trends in a real-time scenario. Cost saving and efficiencies for the industry includes increased efficiency of manufacturing process, minimize or eliminate potential compliance actions, provide opportunities for continual improvement, and facilitates innovation and change. More efficient regulatory oversight allows streamlining post-approval manufacturing changes and regulatory processes, real-time release testing leading to a reduction of final release testing or end product release testing. And that's the last slide. Thank you so much for listening.